I don't think we can be disobedient to God's word and expect there not to be consequences.
Right. Happy Thursday. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome to Real Talk Thursday. We are back for another goodie for you.
You know, the best part about doing Real Talk Thursday is sometimes we get a lot of good feedback from you guys that prompts us to go, like, even branch off from something that we've already talked about based on you guys' comments on the videos and stuff like that. And I think today is going to be one of those days because we want to continue to explore kind of like a little bit from our last video where we were talking about sex, but we're kind of going into a direction of more so like back into the relationship lane and some things, some challenges that we have as we're getting older. You know, those of us who are 40, 50, 60, whatever, you know, still out here in these dating streets, which are very, even very
mid to late 30s.
Muy ghetto.
Yes.
So if you guys want to hear more, stick around.
So there was a couple of people that kind of prompted this. We asked a long time ago for ideas on Instagram of topics that we can do. And someone recommended a topic that has been kind of stuck with me. She just said, can we normalize being older and relationships not working out? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes, because it almost seems as if because we're older, whether you're in your mid to late 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and you meet somebody, whether you do it perfectly God's way or not, people expect that this should be it. But that's not the case. 9 times out of 10, like JERRILYN always says, like you still have to go through the process of getting to know each other and figuring each other out, all those things. So that her comment, her suggestion has stuck with me all this time. So we've just been trying to find the right time to discuss it. Mm-hmm. And then we just got a comment.
Yes.
Off of part 1.
Yes.
That was so, like, it was interesting. So I'm going to let JERRILYN read it.
So really there's 2 comments that I'm going to roll into the topic that Shanna was talking about too, because someone did ask, how would I feel if I didn't meet someone worth dating until my 50s or 60s as it pertains to sex? And what if I never remarry? Because you guys know I'm still holding on to the celibacy train. But of course, there's no way for me to know when or if I will get into a relationship. I will be 39 this year. So she is basically, her name is Candace Dawn. Hi, Candace. She's basically asking, what if I don't meet someone for a while? Like, I'm assuming that she's asking, do I feel like I'll still try to remain celibate? And I feel like that's a great question that we could go into a little bit more in depth, because I don't think it's a straightforward answer, honestly. And then someone else asked, so I feel like she was coming from a good place in asking this, so it may sound a little bit shady.
Yeah, I didn't see it as shady either. Yeah.
Okay, like I actually was like, okay, that's a really interesting question. So, you know, so I know some of y'all ride hard for Shanna, so don't be alarmed.
And I love you.
But I think it's FL Black Butterfly 1 said, I found this to be interesting. Why would you expect the dating relationship to work when you are breaking God's rules? Shanna was so strong about the lack of sex and intimacy being the thing that broke her and her friend up. That was confusing to me. I'm assuming she's talking about Travis.
Yeah, I think so.
So she's asking, you know, why would Shanna have expected their relationship to work when they were breaking God's rules? They weren't abstaining. And I feel like that is such an interesting question, because my perspective, and I definitely want to hear your perspective, but abstaining from sex before marriage does not guarantee you that your relationship is going to work. It also does not guarantee me that I'm going to find somebody you know, and God's going to bless me with a husband.
And it doesn't mean
Because
that
I'm
if you do
abstaining.
have sex before you're married, that means your marriage is not going to work out.
Correct. And so you guys all know about like Megan Good and Devon Franklin, but do y'all remember Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I used to love that.
Remember
show
back
too.
in the day, they abstained and they waited until they got married to have sex. It was very important to both of them. She's like a pastor's kid. They both were really like heavy into their faith, and their their marriage still didn't work out, and they ended up getting divorced. And I think they both have since been remarried. That's not to say that we shouldn't try to do the things that we're supposed to do, because I was just telling my daughters, who are teenagers, prompted from this conversation, I asked them, I said, why do you guys think we should do what God asks us to do? And my younger daughter, Mariah, who's 13, she was saying like, because like if we do, then God will bless our lives. And I asked her, I said, but what if he didn't? Like, what if he didn't bless your life as a result of you following everything he asked? Would you still feel like you wanted to follow, or do you feel like the relationship with God is like more transactional? And we had like a really deep conversation about it. And what I really want to know what you think.
With teenagers.
Yeah, because I feel like we both have been in places in our lives where we've been extremely by the book.
Oh yes,
as you say. And
I was self-righteous by the book, for real. It was ridiculous.
Like, did you have an expectation at that time that you would be rewarded?
I did. I mean, I feel like that's, like you said, I feel like that's just what Christians feel. Like, if I do things God's way, he's going to bless me.
Yeah.
Which is not untrue.
Right.
But I think God also knows hearts. And I always think about David in the Bible and all of the stuff that he did wrong. Yeah, he was still a man after God's own heart, and God still blessed him. Obviously, there were natural consequences, which I don't think we can be disobedient to God's word and expect there not to be consequences.
Right.
But I don't think God just doesn't bless us because I think he understands, like, the things that we do that we're not supposed to do are things that we're battling. It's not like we're just like, I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want to do. Granted, I think it can get that way. And I think in some ways, maybe I have gotten that way in some regard because I have done everything by the book like that. And yeah, I did expect, I mean, I was celibate for 5 years and like not one glimpse of a husband. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Now, God has always blessed me. God continues to bless me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like there's been any stage of my walk with him where he hasn't blessed me abundantly, because I'm, so maybe I had sex before marriage and, obviously still had sex before marriage, but I'm faithful in other ways. There's so many things. There's so many ways to be obedient to God. It's not just about premarital sex and just about the obvious things that you can see. You know what I mean? It's about, are you tithing? What's your heart like? Do you keep your, mind and body pure? I mean, because you could go down the road of what music are you listening to? You can go down the road of what TV, or, God also wants us to protect our hearts and minds too. Right. It's not just about those obvious things that like homosexuality and sex and like all those things. There's so many different layers. But yeah, I did expect God to bless me abundantly, but I wanted him to specifically bless me with a husband who loved and honored him. And it didn't happen. And like, I don't feel like, in retrospect, I don't feel like I was ready, but I feel like you could say that about anything too. Yeah. You can always look back and be like, man, I'm better now than I was then. So it's probably better off that I didn't have it then, because, you know what I mean? Like I just feel like it's so much more complex than just black and white.
And I feel like, I don't know if it was in the last video, but you had made a comment about people who are married, who are happily married now, who were having sex with each other before they got married.
And then all of a sudden you get married and then your sin just disappears.
It's like, oh, it never happened.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's interesting because like I did not abstain with my ex-husband. Like we had sex before we got married. We had sex after. Our marriage didn't work, and it didn't have anything to do with sex in it really any regard. But then I really feel like I had a lot more of a positive and beneficial relationship with my son's dad, just in terms of like the things that I learned and how much I grew. And we never were married. And obviously we were not abstaining because we had a whole human being. And even now, like I pray and I like ask God, it's like it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that the Lord will bless us in a specific way other than tithing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tithing is like the only, a promise in the Bible where God says like you can test him and he will respond in a certain way. Yep. But other than that, God doesn't say, if you abstain, I'm gonna give you a husband. Yes. If you abstain, I'm gonna make sure that you get your 6 foot tall, 6 figures, 6-pack. You know, like. So I have prayed like just in this period of me being single, and I'm like, God, you don't have to do anything for me, but you know that this is difficult for me. Yeah. I pray that you see my heart, and I pray that in some way, shape, or form that you'll show me favor. And I feel like he has, but it hasn't been anything related to a relationship. Yeah. Like I feel like God has blessed me so much, really, the last 2 years in which have been a struggle for so many people because of the pandemic. God like turned my life right side up. Because there were a lot of things, that balance and other things that I didn't have before the pandemic, once the pandemic came, a lot of things shifted and ended up being in my favor. But like Shanna was saying, there's not only one way to be faithful. And because we weren't going to church or anything like that, I was not tithing. I had not been tithing like over this period of the pandemic. And God was still blessing me financially. Yes.
And I actually just in a vlog, I don't know if it's up or not at this point. It's probably been up already. But I was talking about that because I ended up texting you about the Financial Peace University. I watched the Michael Todd podcast, and that series came as such a perfect time for me because I've always been a very, very faithful tither. Mm-hmm. That's one thing about, I'm so generous. I'm not stingy at all. Mm-hmm. Now, when I'm struggling a little bit, I'm just harder to let go of the money. But like when it comes to money, like I'm quick to be like, no, I'll pay you for that. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna give you money for that. Thank you for helping me. Here's some money. You know what I mean? Like it's not a big deal for me. But so I've always been a very avid tither. But then the pandemic hit. I'm barely making my ends meet. Mm-hmm. And then I stopped tithing. And I just recently, in the last, like since I've been working extra overtime, been feeling a little bit convicted and feeling like God is prompting me to start tithing again. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, and I was just praying about it because it's like when you get used to not tithing, it's hard to let go. Mm-hmm. That 10%,
for sure,
when you're in debt is a lot. It feels like a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So then this Michael Todd from Transformation Church series happens, and I'm just like, this could not be more perfect. Right. So, and I feel like that the reason why I haven't completely drowned in my situation is because of how faithful I have been, how generous I have been in the past over however many years. God has held me. Like, I feel like he's just been teaching me things because I did ask him right before the crap hit the fan. I asked him to help me be a better steward of my finances. And he was like, okay, I'm just going to take it all away.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Right. No, that's so true. And, like, this is kind of just like going back to our main topic because y'all know we sometimes we jib and jab. But, it's like, what is our intention for doing any of the things that we do? And I think one thing that when some people leave comments, whether you mean it in a good way or a bad way, sometimes the person reading it doesn't take it the way that you mean it, because it's hard to know how you mean something that's written, right? But in some of the times that people have kind of like come after you hard in terms of like, oh, well, now you just out here loose because you know, whatever, blah, 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 or you're pregnant or stuff like that. I just remember when I was pregnant with my son, when I was in a relationship with his dad, but we weren't married, and just how hard of a road that is to walk for a lot of different reasons. I think motherhood and pregnancy is hard. It can be hard even when you're married, but especially if you're not married, and especially if like your circumstances lead you to like not even be in a relationship with that person. It just makes me sad, and it made me think of myself whenever people will like make those comments or stuff like that, because it's like it's not helping anyone. And then you almost feel like, well, God, I did all of these good things in the past, but then it's like, okay, I kind of went my own way, and now it's like you almost feel like you're being punished in a way, not with the child, but sometimes in just like other ways, or the way that people react, or the way that people treat you and stuff like that. But then it's like, but then when I was doing everything the right way,
right,
it didn't necessarily feel like I was being rewarded.
Right.
But it, you know, again, it's like, are we doing it to be rewarded? Or do we feel like when we don't do certain things, we're going to be punished? Because either way, I just don't feel like that is the heart of God towards us in terms of what he wants our relationship with him to be like.
For sure. I think more than anything, he just wants that relationship to be solid, the communication to be open. You know, if we're struggling with, you know, sexual immorality, then going to him about it instead of trying to hide from him because of it. You know what I mean? Things like that I feel like are more important. And yeah, like just because someone, you know, is having sex doesn't mean they're promiscuous. It's not like, you know, we out here, like if you were having sex, I'm definitely not promiscuous, never have been. I'm not out here just spreading it for everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like you can't judge somebody's heart just based on whether or not they're having sex with someone.
Right.
Because I judge their heart.
I do feel like there are certain sins that people like judge more, you know, harshly or whatever. But that kind of leads me to the question that Candace had asked, like, if I didn't find someone, or if I didn't end up getting into a relationship, like, I wouldn't have thought that it would have taken me this long.
Girl.
Because I've never had this much time where I haven't been in a relationship. I had 2 super long-term relationships. When I was with my ex-husband, that started when I was 19. Like, that's when we started dating, and we ended up getting married, and we stayed together. And there was only a year in between him and my son's dad. And then we stayed together for a long time. So since we haven't been together, which, like I said, it's been, I don't even know how long, like 3 or 3.5 years or whatever, I wouldn't have thought I'd still be single now. Right. So in a way, yes, I have made the conscious choice to not have sex, but it was almost also an accidental choice because I didn't realize like how long it would last.
And I think that's normal. I think that when you're young, you turn your life to the Lord, or whenever it is that you turn your life to the Lord, doesn't matter what age, you don't think it's going to take long. And I feel like some people, like
that's such a good point.
I've seen some like influencers, for example, who just freshly turned their, like literally it has only been a year since they turned their life to God and decided to become celibate, and then they already found their husband. It's so easy to talk about not having sex and being so adamant about not having sex before marriage when you only had to wait a year.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you add 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, which I think some of your subscribers in the comments and like past videos have said, like, it's been 5 years for me. It's been 10 years for me. It's been like, some people have, like, it almost gets to a point where it becomes a new lifestyle. And I remember watching like the Ellen TV show, you know, the Ellen, the TV host. And I remember her saying, if you can take a chance, because someone in her audience was asking, like, I have this guy that's a friend. I've always kind of just seen him as a friend, but he kind of wants to date. And should I take a chance? Because I don't want to ruin the friendship, yada, 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 yada. And Ellen was like, I believe you should always take a chance on love, because the older you get, the harder it is. And the older that you are, the more likely that you are to get set in your solitude.
Very true.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's your choice, that is not where I'm at. And I don't want to get set in my solitude, because I am still leaving room and openness in my life and in my heart for a husband, because I know, like, that is really my desire. I really, 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 above all else, want my kids to see a healthy, godly marriage from the inside.
For sure.
And my oldest daughter is almost getting ready to be going off to college in like a couple of years. And I'm like, God, please don't let it be too late. Please don't let it be too late. Because that's one thing, you know, when we talk about breaking generational curses, that I really want to be redeemed. Like for my kids, I want them to see that. So I told her, when the lady who made the comment, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't even think about it. Don't even make me think about it. Because if I had to sit here and think, well, what if it's another 4 years? What if it's another 5 years? I would probably just be like, no, I'm going to consciously end this now.
Yeah, because I really feel like thinking about it like that puts people who really have that strong desire in a panic almost.
Yeah. Yep.
Because time goes by so freaking fast. And that's when people start to settle. And then things just get like you just have to take it one day at a time. And even when it comes in regards to, you know, sexual intimacy, you just got to take it one day at a time. And like, you know, it's hard to wait. So if you did, hopefully you don't, but if you did have to wait 10 more, 20 more years, the celibacy train might be getting off the tracks. You know what I mean?
So, okay. I'm trying to think. Do I want to go here? Because y'all know I be transparent, but sometimes I even be asking myself, do I want to go here? But some of y'all who have been riding with us for a while will remember the first video that we did talking about sex. We also talked about masturbation.
Oh, I forgot to link that.
So, and I was saying in the video, there's definitely been, like, I definitely have masturbated, like, for sure. But there's been like periods of time where I've like asked God, is that still a crutch? Because like, if you don't have anyone and you still have like the urge, to have sex, or, you know, even just like the chemical and physiological need to like have an orgasm that I think is normal that people have. I'm like, God, should masturbation be even a part of like my singleness or celibacy journey, or is that a crutch? When I feel those, you know, energies and like I told y'all, the heat starts wafting up, should I be trying to turn to God in that moment and ask him to help me? Because I don't want to, if the whole point is for me to get a closer relationship with God, then I don't want a crutch of any type. And it could honestly be anything. And I feel like I'm a pretty open person. You guys know that. I don't find anything wrong with vibrators and sex toys or anything else like that.
Say anything about masturbation, really?
I don't think the Bible says anything about it. If y'all know where the Bible says something about it, let me know, because I don't want to misquote.
Yeah.
But I've like looked for sermons or videos or whatever about it, and I think for the most part, what most pastors or people will say who are talking about the topic is that there still is a chance with masturbation that it can still rewire your brain to just be more like self-sufficient. I think it's more of like still of a reliance on yourself to meet a need instead of asking God to help you through those moments where you feel weak sexually or you feel weak physically or anything like that. But I be telling myself, look, self, I could pick up this phone and call Tyrone. Or I could go in there and refreshing the batteries and just be all right on my own.
Because there's some times where it almost is infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
The level of frustration, if you don't release it.
Yeah.
And like if you do release it, like I'm like literally like a new person. It's
right,
done.
Right.
I'm good. I'm over it. I'm in a better mood.
Absolutely. It's like now I can sleep.
But that feeling, it's like, dang, I can't have sex, and I can't take care of this by myself. Can I get anything?
Right, for sure.
Any type of relief.
So I think that especially if we're talking about us getting older and normalizing, not having relationships work out. So now that we're older and we're finding ourselves in like seasons of singleness, but we're all older and experienced, so we know, because it's different when you're younger.
Very different when you're younger,
and you're waiting for like the first time. But it's kind of different when you've kind of been around the block and around the pole a couple times, and you kind of know what's what. It's a little bit harder to get.
It's a lot of
those memories and images and feelings and things out of your mind, because it's not like you're fantasizing or you're imagining. It's like, no, I'm remembering like what I've had. I'm remembering what I've done. I want that feeling again. But it kind of is a part of the journey of us all being older, for those of us who are single, like after a divorce or after losing a spouse, or even for those of you guys, I know there are people who are watching who are older and have never been married or anything like that. It's like, I think this is just honest to God. One of those things that's part of the process, the masturbation or, whatever it is that you want to do. So, I remember Michael Todd, to reference him again, in one of his sermons, he was talking about how people don't put enough emphasis on the progress that you've made. He's like, you could be someone who used to sleep with, a new person every month and you were doing all this. And now it's like, you done cut it back to one person a quarter, or he was kind of just making the illustration.
Which is, that's a good
that
point.
It's not going to realistically always be something as cold turkey. I'm just
for sure.
I'm just going to be done, and that's just what it's going to be. Can that be true for you? Sure, it can be. And God can definitely empower us, but for most people, it's a process. It's a process of unrolling that ball of yarn and getting to where you want to be, and you take like all of these incremental steps.
Right. And personally, for me, my victory is in the fact that I'm not idolizing the idea of marriage, because I went through, so much of my life just because I feel like a lot of women do that, even still, whether they've been divorced or not. You just put marriage on this pedestal like it is your end all be all. And it's I just want to get married. I just want to get married. I just want to get married. That's not what God wants for us either. He doesn't want that to be an idol in our lives. He wants us to only focus on him and let all those other things be just, so for me, the fact that I'm at a point finally in my life where I'm not like obsessing about with my desire to be married is a huge victory. So, like, am I out here sleeping with everybody? Absolutely not. But, like, if I do, meet somebody and, we end up having sex, like, I still feel like I've made a lot of progress, regardless of what other people think.
I remember being in a relationship and being so obsessed and focused on whether or not we were going to get married that I was, like, miserable.
I do that.
I was miserable just trying to figure out, what are we doing? Are we getting like, we've been together now for some years, and you are giving me all of the indications that you want to, like, it's not like either one of us are going anywhere. And I still remember, y'all, this is kind of funny. I was listening to XM radio, and it was a podcast like on the Oprah channel or something like that. And she had her relationship experts, and I think one of them was like, I can't even remember the lady's name, but it's like a kind of an old school lady that I remember seeing her on TV and stuff, that was like a relationship expert. And I called in.
Oh, was it like the old lady, the sex lady?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't Dr. Ruth.
Yeah.
No. I love her. No, it doesn't even really matter because I can't remember the lady's name. But I called into this radio show, and I actually got through. And I asked, this is when I was still in a relationship with my son's dad. I said, I'm in a relationship, I've been in a relationship with someone, for some years now. I really desire to get married. It's always been my desire to get married. He makes it seem as though he wants to be with me, but we're not moving any closer to marriage. Like, what should I do? And when I tell y'all, the answer that this lady gave me put so much shame on me. She would like ripped me apart.
For real?
She was basically like, well, clearly you're a dumbass for, she didn't say it like that, but like her delivery and everything, her tone was like, so you knew you wanted to get married, you got in a relationship with someone, you stayed with them for some years, you guys had a kid, and now you're wondering why you're not getting married? Like, duh. And I just remember it was it was so hurtful, because I think, and especially as we're getting older, it's very easy to get into a relationship and you can feel like you are communicating to the person that you're with what you want and what your expectations are, and they're communicating with you, but you're also trying to, like, I'm a person who moves at a very slow pace. So you're trying to give time and you're trying to give grace, and you're not trying to rush the situation. Like, a lot of men complain about feeling rushed. Yes. Like, you're trying to pressure me, you're trying to rush me. So I'm one of those people that is like very mindful of that. So it's like, in my mind, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. But then you can get into a situation where now you're in a relationship that you've been in for a long time, and the relationship is like growing stagnant. Mm-hmm. But then she made me feel like it was my fault.
Because you chose to...
Because I chose to stay and accept things as they were. But I was kind of like, but that wasn't my intention, because we loved each other and we had a child, and he wasn't going nowhere. I wasn't going nowhere. You know how people do, start calling you wifey and all this other stuff. And so I'm like, and I know that he knows that I want to get married. So I'm just thinking that's what's going to happen.
Right.
It wasn't like I was trying to fool myself or fool him or fool anyone. I just thought I was being patient and giving the situation the time that it needed. But she was like, you were a fool.
Here's the thing. It's like it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Absolutely.
So actually, I think, were we talking about
this?
Okay, we were talking about this. So
because I said women get blamed for everything. Women get blamed for their singleness. Women get blamed for their relationships not working. Women get blamed for picking wrong. Anyway,
yes, absolutely. I mean, really, and the older you get, I feel like the more conscious you are about the time frame when you are dating. It's like, okay, well, what we doing? It's been 3 months. Like, are we are we on the right track? Like, I mean, I'm about to be 40. Like, what we doing? You know what I mean? Because you're at a point where, especially if you don't have kids, like, and I never really I didn't put any pressure on my last relationship. But, I think, okay, well, I'm about to be 40. I don't have kids. I want kids. Like, I don't have a lot of time to be wasting. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I don't have time for the BS. So that's why, like, I don't pull any punches when I'm dating. Like, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
So, because, like, I want to have a family. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword, because what do? Like, if you rush things and you're like, us, especially us who are very intentional about our own like growth and development, we're very intentional about like just knowing ourselves, and like we want somebody who's the same. It's like, okay, I know what I want in a relationship. Do you know what you want in a relationship? Well, this should move pretty quickly if we both know what we want. But then like if you rush it, then you're wrong. But then if you take too long, then you end up in situations where, and then you have to factor in if you're trying to wait till marriage to have sex. It is hard to wait till marriage to have sex in the first place. So you tack on years to that, and you think it's gonna be just like easy just to wait? Like, come on.
Yeah, and I think like I've seen a couple people make comments about like asking you, do you recognize your patterns or
which irritates me,
your habits or whatever. But when I see that, what it makes me think of is Shanna and I have probably like pretty different approaches to how we approach relationships and the pace that we move and all that, and we're both single. Like, I don't think it's to say that the way that Shanna does it is wrong, because she could do it differently and do it like me, and it could still be wrong.
But the thing that irritates me about that is that you don't know what my patterns are. You don't know my patterns. You guys have seen 3 relationships that I've been in. My husband, the one relationship after my husband, and my last relationship. That's it. You don't know all of the crap that I put up with prior to that. Yeah. So you like the fact that I have been strong enough after my divorce. First of all, the fact that I left my husband, had the strength to leave, because that was not, I mean, it was easy for me because I was terrified because I didn't know who the heck this person turned into.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy decision to make, first of all.
Yep.
Second of all, in my relationship with the first guy after him, I was unwilling to allow someone to treat me. I mean, he was a good guy in a lot of ways, but he, like in the end, it just turned out that it just didn't work out. And I was strong enough to walk away, even though he was a good guy. Like, do you understand how hard that is for a lot of women? Making excuses. Well, he's a good guy and he did this. Well,
I walked away from a good guy and it was extremely difficult. It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Right. It's not easy to do that. But I knew that I deserved someone who was going to see me where I was, who was going to cherish me and love me even in my hardest times. Because I was going through a hard time. Like, I went to Switzerland to see my sister, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into detail about what happened. You can watch the video. I'll link it. But the fact that I was strong enough and I chose me, that broke a cycle. You know what I mean? And then the fact with Travis, like, I decided to do something different. You know, I moved in with him. I've never done that before, whatever. But I was even able to let go of Travis. And Travis was one of the best relationships that I was ever in a lot of ways. And I was able to still choose me. That is a victory. So for someone to tell me that you need to notice you don't know who I was before. So for you to tell me that I need to notice my patterns, like, you need to check yourself, because you don't know where I've been. You don't know where I've been. That shit.
She said what she said.
Listen,
y'all.
That shit irritates me to my core. It takes everything not to comment, but it's like, you can't even rationalize with that because you don't know who I used to be.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like just the small victories. The small victories. I have broken my cycles. And I'm just trying to figure it out just like everyone else.
Yeah. And, you know, the things that you have overcome, that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't still more things to overcome. Like, we're all on this journey. And what you said about Travis, you know, is kind of like the same way I have felt about my son's father. We never had any scandal or anything bad happen or anything like that. But it was just one of those things where I was like, I know he's not right for me.
Right. And how many women just stay in relationships just because you can't really pinpoint abuse or cheating, and then they're miserable because they end up settling. Like, we chose to not settle. That is something to be proud of. I don't care what anybody says.
And I think you have to remember, just because he's a good guy doesn't mean he's the right
absolutely
guy. Like, I'm very blessed that we're able to have a very positive co-parenting relationship and do the things that we need to do in that regard. Like, we don't have any issues. And I still have people like that know the both of us that ask me, so why aren't y'all together? Because obviously these single streets out here are muy ghetto.
They really are.
So it's like, well, wouldn't you just, be with him? Like, he loves you. And it's like, I'm not going to say that I haven't asked myself that question. Like,
naturally,
should I just be with him? Like, I know he loves me. I know he's not doing nothing crazy. Like, for the most part, he's gonna, like, I'm not gonna have to worry about cheating or lying or nothing like that. But I just really knew that if we believe, I don't necessarily believe in soulmates per se. We've had that conversation, but I do believe that there's someone out there for all of us that God wants us to partner with in terms of being our spouse, that is a very purposeful union. That you two being together is going to propel your kingdom work to a higher level. You guys are going to be able to really impact other people on a higher level. Like, I feel very strongly that is my journey when it comes to marriage. It's going to really be, to sound cliche, like a kingdom partnership. Yeah. And I knew that that's not what I had. And I had to ask myself, do I want something that's okay? Or do I want something great? Do you leave something that's okay for the chance at something great? But what if you never find that something great, and then you're back into the situation? Well, what if it takes a lot of time? And it's just one of these things where I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know what's going to happen. But I am also at a point in my life where I'm like, I have to have what I know it is that God wants me to have. Absolutely. And I don't want to get in my own way of that, because I say, you know what? This is too hard. I don't want to be single. I know there's something out there that will be fine. Right. It will be good enough. I want to retire this vibrator. Let me just go be with that person. But then if I do that, but God wanted me to wait another 5 years, but he had my kingdom purpose partner. Now I've sacrificed that, and I don't want to do that. But I also feel like very scary. Our spirits feel it, though. Yeah,
it's like when you're in a situation where you can, your spirit can bear witness to the fact that this isn't what you prayed for, and you end up feeling almost tormented.
But hold on too, because I wasn't praying for a diddly squat when we first got together. You know what I mean? Yeah. As I've grown and changed as a person, I've understood the role of prayer when it comes to finding a partner and stuff like that. And when I decided that I was not going to stay with him, I remember I had a conversation with my daughters, who then at that time would have been like 9 and 12, I want to say. And I told them, I said, look, here's what it is. He's a part of our family forever. Like, it's not like he's going away. But we're not going to live together. We're not. Actually, that was five years ago that I moved out from living with him. And then we still stayed together for a little bit. But then because we weren't living together, it just kind of fell apart. But I just remember I told my daughters, it's never a bad time to make the right decision. Absolutely. You can be in the middle of going in a certain direction and then be like, you know what? I maybe didn't pray before, but I'm praying now. Right. And I'm feeling God's giving me a little unction to move in a different direction. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I went into this different direction, very afraid and not knowing what was going to happen. And it has not been the easiest road, but I feel like it's been the right road. Absolutely. And I even hesitate to say I don't want to settle for him, because I feel like that's almost like a disrespect to him, because he's a wonderful person. He just is not the person for me. And I feel like, in terms of us normalizing relationships not working, that's okay.
It's okay.
Everybody that you start dating ain't gonna be the right person. That's why y'all dating.
Exactly.
To figure out,
Exactly.
what it is.
And why is why is it viewed so negatively if you end up dating somebody, even if you're together for a year, maybe even a little longer, and then it doesn't work out? Why is it why do people look down on that so much as you get older?
I feel like even when you're younger, because the perception that people had of like Lori Harvey and all her dating and the hopping around and even my oldest daughter was like, well, didn't she date somebody and then she dated his son? So I can't remember like who that would be. And now she's with, Michael B. Jordan, which is like America's, sweetheart. Everyone loves him.
So they think, yeah.
So, hey, let's just say.
Yeah.
Let's say everything is great and everything is how it appears to be. What's wrong with the fact that she hipped and hopped and jibbed and jabbed and everything? Because she was trying to find
you actually
her person.
See that a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like you hear that more often than you hear like, oh, she did everything right and then she met the perfect man.
Yes, for sure. It's like, no, I went and I did whatever and I kissed all the frogs and whatever. It's like people are like, let me just get through this process so I can get to my person. And I almost feel like that is a better method to go than my method, which is I'm not going to meet anybody because I ain't even trying to actively meet nobody. Like the chances of me finding a husband are slim to none because my life is not even set up to meet anybody at this point. Now I feel like that's okay because y'all know I'm in school and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I'm going to have to start doing something different to even be out and around. But I can't overanalyze and overthink, well, what if I do it wrong? And what if I mess up again and whatever? And that's a big fear for me. But I'm just going to have to go out there and take the chance of messing up if I want to get to a place where I meet the right person. Yeah. So did we just put a bow on that? That almost felt like
I feel like that was pretty good.
That felt like
I feel like it can go in a lot of directions,
it could go in a lot of directions. And I actually think that this conversation, I'm hoping, is very relevant in like touching you guys. I would love to have the part 2 of this conversation be a live conversation that we have with you guys where we do like another YouTube live or IG live. Because I would be really interested to hear the stories and the journeys that you guys have had, especially like what we were talking about at the beginning of the video, for those of you who felt like, okay, well, I did everything right. And my marriage still failed. I was the picture perfect. I feel like, especially for people in church, that's such an epidemic. That's how it was when I was married. It's like the picture perfect. As long as everything seems a certain way, and then that's what really matters. And people are just suffering behind the scenes in relationships that look like they'll be, they're going to be okay, but they're not. So it's like, if we're going to be struggling anyway, can I at least struggle forward? Can I struggle? Seriously, for real. Can I struggle towards my man? So let us know in the comments if you guys would be down to have a live chat about this topic, because I really want to know. Thank you so much, FL Black Butterfly, for leaving that comment and leaving it respectfully, but still not being afraid to ask the question, which I feel like was valid. So
there you have it, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next Real Talk Thursday.